one sentence written by an obscure British foreign minister in 1917, almost a century ago. Why does everybody sitting in Prague know it? You know it because the Zionist movement made sure you knew it. They thought it was an important legal document for them. They're going to make sure everybody knows about it. If I were to ask you, how many people in this room have heard of the 1947 partition resolution, which helped to create a Jewish state in Palestine? How many of you have heard of it? Raise your hand. Look around you, around half or more. But every year, the UN passes, it was a General Assembly resolution. Every year, the UN passes how many? 100, 200 General Assembly resolutions? Why do all of you remember one General Assembly resolution from 60 years ago? You remember it because the Zionist movement made sure everybody knows about it. Mr. Eben, the foreign minister, he said, that General Assembly resolution is our birth certificate. It showed the world we are not bastards, we are a legal child of the international system. The problem with the Palestinians and their supporters is they too have gotten major legal victories. The International Court of Justice opinion. They too have a birth certificate. In fact, they get a birth certificate every year from the General Assembly. The same General Assembly which voted for the partition, it was a close vote. It was 33 in favor, 13 against, 10 abstentions. And Israel only got the 2/3 by a lot of arm twisting and a lot of bribery. The Palestinians every year get 164-7, 161-6. They have so many birth certificates. But if I were to ask you, how many of you know about that annual vote in the General Assembly? Raise your hand. Not many. How many know the International Court of Justice advisory opinion? Not many. That's the problem. God helps those who help themselves. You have to organize and make known that your case is the case which is supported by everyone, including your own government every year at the United Nations. And if that were known, I think the case would be much stronger, and there are possibilities to win, because I don't think Israel has much of an answer. The only thing they could do now is, as I say, engage in archaeology about the Mufti, because they don't want to talk about the present. They don't want to talk about what the UN says. They don't want to talk about what the International Court of Justice says. They don't want to talk about what Human Rights Watch has to say. They don't want to talk about what Amnesty International has to say. And now, they don't even want to talk about what that Zionist lover of Israel, Richard Goldstone, has to say. Because their case is indefensible. It's indefensible. So I think that if we do things right, work hard, show just a little bit of courage. We're not talking about much. It's not like if you're in the Gaza and you throw a stone in a tank and you're 5 years old and you get your head blown off. That doesn't happen in the Czech Republic. it requires just a little bit of courage, a little bit of moral consistency, and I think the case is winnable. And I want to emphasize, it's also about being reasonable. Being reasonable. The Palestinians are so reasonable. And that's what we should be. What have I said to you this evening that's extreme? I'm just quoting you from UN votes, international court opinions, human rights organization reports, and yet there are people in this country who you would think I were a ghost or a goblin, the way they react. A witch or a unicorn. It's so strange. The same people I understand in October 2009, not so long ago, they invited Ehud Barak to come here. And Mr. Havel shook his hand, so pleased to meet Mr. Barak. But if you read the Goldstone report, according to Mr. Goldstone, Mr. Barak is a war criminal of the first order, and yet he is welcome, and everybody is all smiles. And when I come, people are so terrified. And the only thing they want to ask me is about, am I pleased that neo-Nazis support me? I mean, not only is the level of that question so contemptible, but they don't even realize how deeply offensive it is. They know full well. My father was in Auschwitz. My mother was in Majdanek. Every member of my family was exterminated during the war. And you ask me a question whether or not I'm happy that Nazis support me? It's really, it's strange.
And allow me please some aspects of our country in this case. Our writer had described very well the preparation of formation of state Israel. And our Berta von Suttner, who was born here, had a very good relation to Jews, but she warned very much to form a Jewish state in Palestine. To the end of her life, when he was awarded by Peace Prize and who had written to disarm. You know that all. She was born here in Prague, and my question will be very simple. So our country has very much to do with state Israel, not remembering that our government had as well delivered arms to form Jewish state. My question is very simple. Why your presentation was not at 10 o'clock in our Institute for Science? Thank you very much.
Well, the organizers are more qualified than me to answer that question. I'll just speak on two aspects of it. Number one, I understand that the government claimed, or I'm not sure if it's the government or the Academy of Sciences, or if there's any distinction in this particular case, but let's just say the entity claimed that, because I'm not sure, nobody knows quite what happened. The entity claimed that it would be one-sided, my presentation. Well, first of all, I don't know how they knew what I was going to say. They never heard my presentation.